Hello everybody, Terry Carl Joyidian here. Super excited to bring you Law 10, which is Fear is the Mind Killer. This is of the book Game Changers by Dave Asprey, What Leaders, Innovators, and Mavericks Do to Win at Life. And I'm adding in the link to this book in case you'd like to follow along. This chapter was so complex for me. I really needed some time to break it down, but I'm going to try to keep it as concise and flowing for you as possible. So let's just start with fear. Dave talks about how fear is a very natural feeling for everybody. It's a survival mechanism that we've had anthropologically forever to help us stay alive. A really common fear that we're all aware of is fear of failure. And if you think about it, back through time, if you failed, you might have died, you might have been unable to mate and produce offspring and continue your line, you may have been kicked out of the tribe, you may have been eaten alive. So failure was a real thing and something that you really needed to consider. Unfortunately, even as we're in a space now where we don't have those immediate survival dangers, some of us still do, but for those of us who don't, we still have that mechanism that wants to protect us, wants us to always be alert, and thinks that if we're not keeping fear in mind, that we won't be safe. So we have to override that, and that's what Game Changers do. Dave puts a continuum out and compares fear with trust. He talks about Ravi Mehta. And if you're on Facebook, I shared a video of his with you. Really awesome guy. Everything can be put into either one of two categories, fear or trust. And it kind of reminds me of what I've been reading in Ask and It Is Given with Abraham Hicks, also Power versus Force. Those also have continuums that are similar. He says those negative emotions, Dave does, like shame, sadness, doubt, those are all related to fear. You can all connect them back to fear. Whereas on the other side, you have trust, which is all rooted in source energy, also what he likes to call love. You can also think of it as God, as chi, prana, whatever. And he has a great image for this. He says we are like a conduit for love when we're feeling trust in ourselves, trust in the universe. Remember that affirmation I shared, the universe is conspiring with me. Then our channel is open, our tube is open. But when we are living in fear, our channel is more constricted. You might even feel it in your heart sometimes. And that flow is not as clean as it could be. It's like a squeezed pipe. I love that image. And he talks about there being 3 pillars for fear. And there's a great story I'm going to share with you quickly before I come back to this. This is also from Ravi. Ravi went on a safari, and during the safari, a lion started to approach the cabin. And the person sitting next to him said, "Don't move, don't breathe, pretend you don't exist." And Ravi had to go into this place of stillness in order to survive and not be eaten by the lion. And these 3 pillars, going back to the pillars, have a great acronym that I came up with to tie them together, which is EAT. Because the lion, the fear lion, can eat you, but if you knock down any of these pillars, he says, then the lion will walk away, because that's what ends up happening. Ravi is able to be super still, go into himself, and even though he feels the lion's breath on him, in a few moments after he reaches that place, the lion walks away. That's all you have to do is knock down one of these 3 pillars to make the fear lion walk away, and here they are for EAT. E is expectation, A is attachment, and T is time. Let's go into each one. Expectation. If you think about the fear of failure, a lot of it has to do with having an expectation that you're afraid you can't meet, or you haven't been able to meet, you have this rigidity that really can stifle you. So it's important to have goals. Dave talks about just tweaking that a little bit. He says you could say that you would like to have something, you have a desire, a preference is the word he uses, but not an expectation. Because he says, if you think about it, if you have an expectation and you meet it, you're like, this is something I already planned on. I expected it to happen. So you don't celebrate it, which was eye-opening for me because this has been an issue for me. But then if you don't meet it, you're devastated. So instead, set preferences, something you're working towards, something that you're visioning, but then there's this openness that you've allowed in case something better comes along. So I think that was pretty powerful. That's E. Knock down that expectation, you knock away fear. A is attachment. At first, Dave talks about what he learned from Rave, and that at first there was this thought that attachments are bad entirely. But then some deeper thought came with that, and it's more about what types of attachments we have in our life. We could have attachments that are very rigid. Again, really great imagery in this chapter, like a steel rod, where we're connected to another body, another thing, another person, another place, whatever. Or we could have an attachment that's more gravitational, where your bodies are in each other's gravity, you're orbiting each other, but as the environment changes, the gravitational pull changes and you move on. It's a little bit of a looser attachment. I don't know if that imagery helps you or not, but I thought it was pretty neat just to see kind of the fluid movement as opposed to the bar connecting together. So that's another pillar. And the last pillar, E-A-T, is time. T for time. And that's about the present moment, like in the story. Dave talks about how when you're in the present moment, basically how I interpret it is you're in love, you're in God, you're in whatever you believe, the source. When you are just in the moment, you may even feel a difference. You may feel a stillness, a calmness, because you are reconnected with that energy that's actually a part of you all the time, except when you're distracted by something in the past, which may make you afraid, or something in the future that maybe you're worrying about. Get back to the present moment, knock down that pillar. And again, Dave says that fear is very natural, but game changers have learned how to get past it. Some things that they do is they educate themselves, they take action, they maintain a state of curiosity, they have habits in place to help them move through the fear. They have a mission, they have a reason to overcome that fear. Those are some of the things he talked about. And there was a section in there about Dr. Bruce Lipton. I got the name right there. Really interesting stuff. Just to summarize, what was discovered is that genetics don't have as big an effect on us as we'd think, and even overall symbolically, we really need to look at the environment, because that's where the power of creation happens. That's where we have control. So the example story is about stem cells and how stem cells can change depending on their environment and form different organs just by how the environment affects them. And he's compared that to how we can use it for ourselves. In our own space, in our own body, our thoughts are directing our environment. If we have thoughts of joy about a situation, we're going to have those endorphins released, which feel great and are great for our immune system. But if we are attributing stress to a situation, a negative stress in particular, then we have the opposite. We have the stress hormones, which actually cause our immune system to shut down to conserve energy for dealing with whatever we have to deal with. So we have a lot of power in the environment that we create with our thoughts. That's what I mostly got out of that. Pretty awesome. And I was thinking about this earlier because I noticed that I laugh a lot more than my husband. Actually, someone else drew my attention to this. And I found out by conversation that he is laughing a lot of the time, but he's holding it in. And I thought, let's let it out. Let it out, because let those endorphins go. It's good for you. Keep it moving. Laughter is supposed to be the best medicine. And I'm going to tie everything back into failure, fear of failure, and wrapping things up with action steps. There are always action steps at the end of the chapter. And this one really stuck with me. There's a man that he refers to, sorry I don't have his name right here, who did a failure practice. I think he had a viral video about it online. So check it out, maybe failure exercise, failure practice, where for 100 days he decided he was going to purposefully ask people for things that they would most likely say no to, because he thought, I can overcome this physiological reaction to failure if I get my body used to that it's okay, if I keep having this experience of failure and moving through it. And what was interesting is he found out that people actually really wanted to help him. I think the experiment actually worked. He did get more comfortable with failure, and he did fail a lot. But a lot of people actually said yes more than he expected them to, and even if they couldn't help him out, they found other ways to help him. Really interesting. So something that Dave recommends is that we try a small version of this, do a week where we ask for outrageous things that we're expecting others to say no to, just to get that experience of failure, and that it's okay to fail. And in fact, there's another activity with failure that ties into that. At the end of the day, something that Dave does with his kids, and he recommends that we try this as well with significant others or our journal, is to list three gratitude practices, or three gratitudes for the day and a failure for the day. And he celebrates his kids when they list their failure. He says, good job taking a risk. Way to stretch that comfort zone. And if they don't have a failure for the day, he's like, maybe next time, maybe tomorrow you'll have a chance to fail and really stretch yourself. And I thought that was so freeing, because fear of failure is such a strong fear for many of us, as we talked about in the beginning of this movie. Some other things he mentions is eliminate distractions, turn off notifications on your phone. I did eliminate some of those after reading this. Use I would like instead of I need. He actually suggests using I want, but want can sometimes have a negative connotation because wanting is lacking. So I just tweaked that a little bit. I would like instead of saying I need, which is very survival minded. And I think that's it. Congratulate yourself on taking risks. Oh, I remember. And last, another practice he talks about is, if you want to go a little bit deeper, is taking a situation where you had stress, where you had fear, putting yourself back in that emotion, back in that experience, and seeing if you can find something to be grateful for in this experience. You've probably tried this before as you look back on your day, maybe just not so intentionally. Find that silver lining, right? And then also, he says, look for an element of forgiveness towards yourself, maybe towards whatever else was in that situation, so that you can start healing those old experiences of fear, boost your immune system, boost your joy, and get triggered less often. So that was pretty powerful. There's a program he mentioned with that. You may want to check it out in the book. So this is a little longer than I intended, but this was an awesome, awesome chapter. I hope you got something out of this that you can use immediately. Please subscribe if you haven't already, like this video if you liked it, and check out Laws 9 through 1, and check out Law 11 for next time. Much love and many blessings to you all. Bye now.